Hello everyone, welcome back to Valley of the Mist Block of the Month. I'm Adriane Ritter.
And I'm Shelley McNeely.
And this is our March 2025 Block of the Month. All right, we promised we were going to do something fun this month, and this month we're doing a doghouse. I guess if you have a well-trained cat, it could be a cat house too. But anyway, as you see, well, I don't know if you remember the size of the other houses. Obviously, we cannot make this doghouse actually, adjust its size enough compared to houses.
Yeah, to scale, but yeah.
Yeah, to scale. But we did make it smaller, and we made the tree bigger. So trying to make it look smaller. So anyway.
Yes, indeed.
What do we need for fabrics this month?
Okay, so this year our focus fabric. If you're going to turn blocks in, you need to use this focus fabric. If you're not turning them in for the block exchange, you can use whatever you want. But this is Poppy's Tie-Dye by Island Batik, which we have available for sale at the meeting. Okay, so we ready to say what we need here?
Okay, it's a long list, so definitely download the instructions. And this, before we even start, I should have said this before. This is an interesting method of doing the house. I mean, the roof. So we're kind of learning something new every month. Okay, so what fabric?
Okay, so from the focus fabric, we're making the door, and it's one piece that's 3.5 by 4 1/4. And then we're going to do some sky pieces. And from the sky, you're going to need 2 pieces that are 1 1/4 by 4 1/4. And these go on either side of the house. Then there's one piece that's 3 7/8 inch square. That's what we're going to use on the roof. Then there's 4 2.5 inch squares, and that's for the tree. Then 2 1 3/4 by 2 3/4, and that's by the trunk. And then there's 1 3 3/4 by 6 1/2. And that that's one of the ones that could be adjusted at the end. And then there's one that's 3 1/4 by 9 3/4, and that's another adjustable piece.
Sorry, I was pointing to the wrong one. Okay.
And then for the house, we need 1 4-inch square. That's for the roof. We're going to cut that on the diagonal and only use one of the diagonal pieces.
So if you're making 2 and you do the same color doghouse, then you'd have both halves.
Right. Okay. Then there's going to be 2 2-inch squares. That's for
the sides of the.
Oh yeah, on top of the walls. That's for the flippy corners we're going to be doing. Yeah. Right. Is that right?
Oh yeah, you're right. I forgot about those. I forgot those are there. They kind of blend in. Okay, yeah. Sorry. So that was the 2 2-inch squares.
Right. And then there's 2 1 1/4 by 4 1/4, and those are walls for the doghouse. And then for the roof, you're going to need 2 pieces that are 3/4 of an inch by 7 inches.
And those are potentially a little bit oversized, but I don't want you to make them smaller because they have a big angle, and a big angle takes more room than you think. So make them that big.
When we do the trimming.
Yeah.
Right. And then the tree, we're going to need 4 2.5-inch squares. And then for the trunk of the tree, we need 1 1 1/4 by 2 3/4. And then for the ground, we're going to need one piece that's 3 1/2 by 12 1/2.
And that's another one of your adjusting pieces if the height of the whole block is not big enough.
Right.
Okay. So we are going to break this one down into roughly 4 kind of sections. One is the doghouse. One is the tree, and then the other 2 are just kind of the finishing, putting it together parts. But it was kind of confusing, huh? All right, the bottom of the doghouse and the top of the doghouse is 2.
Yeah,
and then the tree, and then the bottom and the side. Okay, so we're going to make the basic bottom part of the doghouse. And so the first thing you're going to do, and this is super easy. Shelley can't show hers because she's already sewn part of it. And that's for the next step. So I'm going to show you. We're just going to take the door, and we're going to add the 2 sides on either side of the long side of the door. and then press as you want. When you get that sewn, we're going to use those two 2-inch squares, and these are going to be flippy corners like we talked about in January. And Shelley has one that is sewn on.
Right.
And
so on the diagonal, on the flippy, on the the 2-inch square.
She drew it. Everyone has to draw a diagonal on their piece. Okay. And
so across the diagonal.
Well, you sew just
inside to the outside edge, and then when you flip it
one
up,
thread to the outside.
Right, then it'll fit. Then you're going to trim this to a 1/4-inch seam, and then you're going to do the other side
the same way. Turn it one more. And remember, this is the one where we want you to fold after you sew it down, fold it up, check that it fits. If it does, good. Trim it down to a 1/4-inch right here, and then press it. Okay. So we're going to do that, and then
come
back, and we will go on to our next step. Okay, so we have the base of the doghouse done. That was easy.
Yes.
In the past, on the other ones, we talked about how I like to fold my corners under more. On this one, you can't really do it because there's already kind of extra fabric down there from adding the sides on to the doghouse. So anyway, so our next step is pretty simple. We want you to take this base piece and fold it in half and press the center
like this.
Yeah, so that when you go to put this top on, you're just going to match that tip. You're going to match these top edges and match the tip to the center and sew that on. So you don't have to worry about how to place your triangle corners. And then after you do that, this will be like this. You can trim off these points here if you want, but the next thing you're going to sew on these side pieces, both on either side. And then we will come back because the next step is a little bit tricky. It's easy, but it's tricky. All right. Okay, so we have the start of the roof and we have the sides on. We did forget to mention at the last point that the width of this section is 6.5, in case you're double checking your sizes. Okay, so we have, after we sewed on our sky side pieces, we each trimmed one side to show you, because the next step that you have to do is you need to trim the diagonal. And I like to use kind of a long ruler to make sure I'm keeping with the diagonal of the roof. So you're going to trim, we only trimmed one, you're going to trim both sides. And then the next step, we're going to do our fun, tricky little roof piece, which Shelley's reluctant to admit was genius on my part, but I'm not. Okay, so you start with, you have two of these, you had a square that you cut on the diagonal, right? I'm trying to look at sky.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so we cut that on the diagonal. It was a 3 7/8 inch square. Sorry for that weird dimension, but sometimes we just have to go with the 7/8. And this is kind of like a half square triangle thing, but not.
That's how you actually save fabric, really, by being able to have two pieces that are usable.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So that each of those pieces, which I'm only showing you one right now, you're going to press in half, folding the long hypotenuse, and you're going to take the roof pieces and press those in half, because we're going to match these centers, and that's how you know where to place it to sew. You don't have to worry about matching any of the edges.
You just show too. Well, I got a blue roof.
Oh yeah. So she's putting it on her house to show the blue against her blue background. You can put it on the yellow over here, Shelley. We can change our backgrounds, and Shelley, since she had yellow ground, she went with blue. Okay, so I've just got this. I laid the two pieces right sides together, matching the fold, and I'm going to sew along that long edge. Don't sew too big a seam.
Yeah.
It's a very narrow piece, and we just get this little strip of roof, but it's perfect.
Yeah, the roof is only going to be, I think, 1/4 inch when we're done.
Yeah. So after you do that, and this is the one where I'm going to tell you how to press it. And if you press it wrong, it's not going to work. You press to the roof fabric. So like we each have one. So here's an example. I sewed this on and I pressed it. I pressed to the roof. So the roof, the white is covering part of the roof and it's folded down. And then, just like I've only done one side, you only need to do it on one side, but you're just going to do it on two because you won't know which side you need. Trust me, it's just do both. But take the long ruler and again, cut along and keep that diagonal line. And then here is the tricky part.
It's her ingenious.
It's my
ingenious method.
You know, it's tricky to know how to measure, how to match up diagonals. But I figured out, oh my gosh, Shelley, I think I have
the wrong side.
I have the,
Okay.
No, I do. I have the right side. I'm sorry, I have the right side.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I measured up it. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to put this piece down. And remember the blue, the roof is what goes against the doghouse and the sky is going out. And right here, and there is a photo with a close-up in our instructions that this point of the sky, from you pressing it in and trimming it, that point needs to match the outside point of the sky on the side, and that's exactly where you place it. You can only measure it against this exact point. But when those are matched, I realize this sticks off. That's fine, but sew it right exact there. Press it now to the roof again. Actually, this one doesn't really matter. You can press, it's probably less bulky if you press one to the roof and one the other way.
I think I did it both to the roof, if I remember correctly. But I don't know.
I did too, but I don't think you have to. It's not as important at this stage. So when we come back, we're going to have our roof pieces put on.
Both of them? We're going to do them both?
Yes. Yes.
We probably have to do trim to put the other one on, don't we, or do we?
You really only, you have to trim at this edge. I mean, I would trim up here only because it gets bulky. And you could trim, but you can wait and trim that at the end because you could always use scissors if there's a bulky part.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to come back and we will have the doghouse portion. And that's the hardest portion of this block. Well, we have our finished doghouse. The last portion for that we need to do is you do need to trim it. This should be a 6.5 inch square at this point. For the trimming on the top, you want to leave a 1/4 inch. That kind of looks kind of funky because the roof extends over, but that's your seam allowance above the top of the doghouse. You will have a little bit of a flat part on the top. The bottom, if Shelley's waiting to trim the bottom of hers to make sure she doesn't have something else happen along the way. But the rest of it should be 6.5 inch wide, so you should be pretty good there. I will say that before we move on, what did I do with that piece? I want you to add to the top of this piece of the sky that's left, and so then that portion is done. And now we're going to proceed to working on our tree. And the first part we're going to do, I'm going to borrow Shelley's background. We're going to sew the sky portion to either side of the trunk. And then Shelley has actually...
And press those seams open.
Press them open. Shelley's actually gone ahead and on your 4 2.5 inch squares of sky, you need to either put a diagonal line in the middle or 2 diagonal lines, depending on how you make half square triangles. Right. And you're going to make 4 sets of half square triangles with the 2.5 inch pieces that you had of tree.
So on a 1/4 inch on either side of the diagonal.
Right, which Shelley has already done.
Yes.
And you can see there, she's got that sewn, and now she's going to cut down on the diagonal.
And then you have to put 2 half square triangles.
Right. So then, and I did something different this one. I chose 2 different colors of fabric for my tree, which, and that's fine.
Yeah.
So then when we're done sewing all those together, press the seams open again, Then we're going to assemble the trees, and it's pretty simple how we assemble them. We did one in January block, but you put them two triangles of the foliage next to each other so they look like a complete triangle.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to sew those together, press them open, and then we're going to sew each of these sections together of the 4 sections at the top, and then add the trunk at the bottom, pressing the seams open.
Right.
Easy. All right. All right, so how'd your trees come out?
They turned out great.
All right, mine too. I really like my alternating colors. Okay, so we didn't mention that these half square triangles, if you want to trim them, the size they probably should be is 2 1/8 square. Shelley didn't trim hers.
No.
I did trim mine to 2 1/8, and it comes out to matching the width of the trunk exactly. Hers kind of did that too.
Without any trimming.
Yeah, but you could end up with a little bit taller tree that way, which is you might want. And as you see, we maybe have oversized these pieces a little bit. That's okay. This tree needs at a minimum to be 9.5 inches tall. If it's not 9.5 inches tall, you're going to be making that bottom piece bigger. But we'll talk about that in a second. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to sew the tree to the doghouse. And after that's sewn and pressed, it needs to be 9 3/4 inches wide. If it's not, then you're going to have to make this piece wider. Now, we told you to cut it 3 1/4 by 6.
9 3/4.
9 3/4. Oh, I'm looking at that. Okay, yeah, 3 3/4 by 9 3/4. So add to the width if you don't have. It's weird. It's the same. Yeah, it is going to be.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Okay. So this is 9 3/4 wide, and so that needs to.
Yeah.
You're going to add to the 3 3/4 whatever is missing from this. Sew that on. Now make this piece even at the top. It's probably not. I would start sewing from the bottom just to keep things the same, either the bottom or the top. You can always trim your doghouse shorter if you want to. When you're done with that piece should be 12.5 inches wide, obviously, and it should be 9
3/4 high.
No, 9.5, because the tree's 9.5.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. 9.5.
9.5. 9.5 by 12.5.
Yep.
And then your bottom piece for the ground, we said to cut it 3.5 by 12.5. If yours is not 9.5 tall, just add on to the base.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to come back with our finished block. Okay, we have our finished dog houses. They look great.
Yes.
Just need a dog. We aren't going to have you make a dog. That's on you.
No.
That's on you.
Yeah.
Okay, so these blocks, if you're turning them in for the guild, are due at the April meeting.
Yes.
April meeting. And we will see you back here next month.